started and jump right in. But I think one thing, that why we're all here is we're all cut from the same cloth. We're all kind of marketing and brand nerds from day one. And I say it proudly. Yeah. And I was actually listening to a podcast you were on previously, Evan, talking about your first experience with marketing.
Yeah.
And I found it so funny and so endearing. And I thought it would be a fun way to start this.
Yes. You want to know something? Courtney, remind me, what was the story? Give me a little.
You created your own auto brand out of Pokemons, I believe.
Yes. Well, thanks for asking that. Candidly, that might still be one of my best marketing stories. So not a bad way to start. Long story short, it was fun. I mean, back in the day, I was a Pokemon fan, just like many others, I guess. Came after Beanie Babies, but anyway. Still do love cars, and not necessarily a gearhead, but was always just really intrigued by the different intricacies, how, the suspension and the types of leather that different brands use and all these kind of unique things. And so, at one point, I guess, I kind of melded my interests at the time and created my own automotive brand. It was called Moltres, which is a Pokemon, and storyboarded it out using currently existing cars, but like pretended that they were Moltres cars, and there were different, the P170, the P270, whatever. And I'm sure my parents were, I don't know if they told me, but pretty impressed at the time. I loved it. So.
It's impressive. You come by this occupation as honestly as anyone could.
Yeah, exactly.
And well, I think we'll get into our topic today, which is innovation. Obviously, it's why we're all here. And it's a top priority for almost every organization. We know that to achieve success, or we know and we believe, and we hope everyone else does, to achieve success, you have to put as much energy and investment into marketing as you do into the actual innovation itself. So maybe you could delve into that and discuss how you define innovation in the first place.
Yeah. Well, so excited to talk about this, Courtney. And, innovation is definitely, like you kind of alluded to, it's the heartbeat, of why we do business. We're here to ultimately, of course, serve customers, make a profit, and create competitive advantage. And that's ultimately, I think, one of the things when you ask, how do you define innovation? I think it's almost like when I speak to, fellow marketers, it's a little bit of a reminder. Innovation is about creating competitive advantage. It's not just new ideas or new technology or testing new things. Those are aligned and in some cases part of innovation. But one thing to really remember is that innovation means creating competitive advantage and, in fact, sustainable competitive advantage. So this ultimately could be competitive advantage in your actual marketing program. Hey, we are, reaching customers more efficiently than competitor A is because of our marketing tactics, or literally, marketing is impacting the bottom line, and thus the company is creating a competitive advantage because it's literally becoming more profitable, et cetera. So, that's one way I define it. Again, it's creating those sort of abnormal profits. Just think things that are above average or what you're used to in terms of results. Things like reducing cost is a cornerstone in what innovation is about. This could mean anything from media buying efficiencies for marketers to, again, going outside of marketing and like saving costs on the supply chain, things like that. So just as a last note, I sort of mentioned things that do sort of hug marketing and just in general. Mm-hmm. But I think that is, again, my last point is we have to remember innovation in marketing, is held to the same standard as sort of its broader implications in the organization.
Right. And then, you know, with GoDaddy and with your past work, what's one of your shining star innovative examples?
Yeah, well, so, one, I kind of mentioned how I define it a bit, and hopefully it was clear for everyone, but now it's sort of, how do I leverage it, or sort of strategize around innovation? Because I think in doing so in an orderly way, you're really honoring that sort of that exercise, that you may be doing with your team, or just, organization wide, day in, day out. I really think about, and how I use it, whether it be at GoDaddy or in recent past or further, is balanced innovation. So I like to think of it as both opportunities to kind of exploit, where can we improve and refine tactics against parts of our marketing mix that we already leverage, that we already have some benchmarks against, to put it simply. And then there's like explorative, which is less, it's, I don't know what you want to call it, blue ocean, blue sky, big ideas, right? That you might not even try to judge right away because it is so, new. So to answer your question, I just want to put that out there first. One of like exploitative, I think back to I was at Newegg, which is a large private e-commerce company, and it really has a kind of a corner of the esports and online or PC gaming market. Anyway, so long story short, the social channels that we had built were super valuable. We were working with retailers frequently. And so, we realized, hey, we can monetize our social channels. That was iterating on our current social program, right? We thought, how can we innovate on our current model and actually make money for our department while we're at it? And that was an example, actually getting certain sort of like social products on a rate card that we could then go to vendors who sold through Newegg to partner with us in social. Creating one of the brands here that I oversee in terms of digital marketing and social here at GoDaddy is Media Temple. The fact that at one point, and what is active now, we pivoted from more of a brand, marketing approach to more of a performance marketing approach for social. That was exploiting or iterating on, the strategy for that brand. And then, with explorative, I'm trying to think here. There have certainly been, some efforts to, when I'm thinking of my work in the past, but I think actually one example now at GoDaddy, it's not quite an exploration at this point. It was more so a little bit before, but us even exploring, hey, let's serve the web designer and developer audience. We weren't necessarily a brand that played in that space. So explorative was really like, okay, we haven't even worked with this audience quite yet. And actually going in now over a few years to understand them without really too much of a trajectory on when are we going to return from this audience. And, since kind of embarking on that a few years later, now we've launched GoDaddy Pro as a formal sub-brand. So I know I'm probably giving you a lot there, Courtney, but
no, I think that's great. But I love the explorative aspect of this job. I am a talent booker, so I'm sitting on the sidelines watching it happen with most of my marketing executive clients, but I think it's one of the most fun parts of the job.
Right.
And while innovation, you said something to me, innovation can equal failure. And I think the bigger the innovation, the bigger risk of failure. But you were saying when you were, exploring the professionals, the web designers, you didn't invest too much in it. So it didn't seem like a big risk, but it ended up paying off in spades at the end.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your experiences with intelligent failure, experimentation, and all of that. But just keep it to business.
Got it. Yes.
Experimentation anywhere else in your life.
Right. Exactly. I love this topic too. I probably should stop saying that because I love everything we're talking about. So, intelligent failure is, gosh, we really don't need to complicate it too much, right? It's failing intelligently. And I guess really what that means is setting yourself up for failure by being bold and testing, again, even if it's small to large, and with the sort of intent and ambition to innovate, you're innately sort of setting yourself up to fail here and there, but doing so intelligently, I think on one end is collecting the data and findings. I know that sounds very simple, but that is failing intelligently, right? Being able to come out of it knowing the positives, negatives, and just the overall learnings. I think also, intelligent failure, sort of on a different end of the spectrum, almost kind of goes into culturally a little bit as well. And what I mean by that is, by failing intelligently, again, it's not by happen chance, it's deliberate. But to even do so deliberately, we have to feel comfortable to do so deliberately within our teams, within our marketing function. And some of that, it can touch all parts of the organization, meaning it can, obviously some culture starts higher at the top and then goes down to, anyone that's managing another team member, to really instate that we've heard the term psychological safety, that your ideas are safe to be shared. They'll be assessed intelligently, and not, be judged, judged in the negative sense of the word. Right. But you get the gist. So what I mentioned was just the idea that, hey, we're going to plan our failures, AKA innovate and experiment, get the data. And on the other end, again, a very kind of different aspect of it failing intelligently is actually setting up that culture to begin with, to even have people feel safe to, want to fail or experiment.
Yeah.
And, just with experimentation, that is actually the manifestation of intelligent failure. So I was having that waiting in the wings, but that's really what it comes down to, because experimenting is actually something that we at GoDaddy really, really just prescribe to, our current CEO, and we just have a great leadership team and really have for a little bit, but our, CEO Aman, he is big on experimentation. And, if we had the time, he's probably a pretty good case study on sort of evangelizing innovation and this intelligent failure. But point is, how I'm operating. And actually right before this, so poetic, was reading out kind of the results of an experiment that we're doing. We're doing a handful a quarter, if you will. And these are with, a hypothesis and with statistical significance, where, and doing these things against even brand marketing initiatives, as well. So, I won't speak, I won't go on too much. We can kind of poke at it if we want, but to kind of, put sort of a bow on it, experimentation is really the manifestation of, intelligent failure, and something that I employ quite a bit.
That's great. I mean, definitely. My first experience with GoDaddy was watching the crazy commercials that kind of erupted and disrupted everything. So I think it's fantastic to hear that there's so many brains behind the end result that I look at.
Yeah.
Let's see, we have a few more minutes before we're going to do Q&A. So okay. It's a phrase that you introduced to me.
Yeah.
Dynamic ambidexterity.
Yeah.
Talk about it. Tell us about it. What is it? How do you think about it?
Well, I mean, I'm sorry, but that term, we can all feel that much smarter after this. So write it down. Just
I'm
at
glad
least
I know.
yeah, just get like a surface knowledge for all of our viewers here, and then just go and use it, and you'll just immediately, just playing. Well, listen, ambidexterity is, I can use both my hands in humans, right? It's similar. Dynamic, I think, alludes to the fact that kind of the fluid going back and forth between exploitative and explorative innovation. Iterate, smaller iterations. Hey, I'm going to A/B test this media and copy. That is a form of iterating. And then the explorative, like we said, maybe just pursuing a whole new audience, right? Or a whole new, and so dynamic ambidexterity is, put very simply, is the ability for an organization, team, et cetera, to pursue both ends of that spectrum, or to decide, be deliberate, we're going to exploit, our experimentations this quarter are going to be kind of exploitative, but hey, in the second half, we really do want to pursue something explorative. That's deliberate. That is largely being dynamically ambidextrous. Look at, okay.
Yeah, that's it.
yeah, I did it. Okay, cool. But that's really what it comes down to. There's some fun aspects underneath that that almost have to do with like at the organization level, but it really comes down to balancing those two types of innovation.
Amazing. I'm happy to know it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have 4 questions here. One I will answer first, because I want to know the answer, is what brands do you look up to, and what leaders in marketing do you admire?
Oh gosh, I was just having a chat last week and I choke up on this question. It's funny. It's a like a straightforward question, right? I think it's just because there are many that I admire and look up to. I would say that a brand that I really admire a lot is Taco Bell. And Taco Bell, and certainly as from a marketing perspective, and just to keep it short and sweet, I think Taco Bell, they certainly know their brand well. I think that they exploit, the great opportunities of, the sort of ubiquitous love for food among consumers. That not all quick service restaurants do, perhaps, as well as they could. Really, like I said, exploiting on that hunger, literally. So I think that they do some neat things in that realm, and certainly employ, I think, innovation smartly and seamlessly from product to literally down to community management. So Taco Bell is a brand that I love, and I probably, yes. Now I'm Marissa Thalberg, CMO of Lowe's, actually used to be at Taco Bell, which is a coincidence in my speaking points.
Yeah.
I guess I bring it home in the end. I don't know, but for this question, but Marissa is just incredible. I mean, look her up. She was at Taco Bell. She's now leading Lowe's. She actually just entered Lowe's like a month before the pandemic. So she was helping drive all of that behavior right around home improvement. And I think that Marissa and then, Taco Bell are some brands and marketers I admire.
Totally agree. All right, let's go here. All right, how do you approach emerging media channels, and how do they factor into your overall strategy?
What a great question. So this is actually a great example around experimentation. So in terms of, approaching emerging media channels, there is a decent amount of due diligence that goes into that, that I think we could all understand. And it's, I think in many ways, we being marketers, let's say, approach it differently, but similarly. Like we're going to assess, hey, if we are looking at emerging social channels, or perhaps it's other, types of media, just looking at literally things around monthly active users and just vetting the robustness of the channel. Is it here to stay? Is it going to deliver us value? Things like that. And like I said, it's sort of like pick and choose how you do that. We all sort of get to that point. But to bring it back home to our discussion now, you really can, and how I approach it, to be more direct, is through that, experimentation. Let's set up, a hypothesis here. And this would ultimately be kind of when you do find you have the wherewithal to try out a channel. Be able to glean insights through that construct. And that really helps kind of keep you smart and ambitious in how you are entering this channel and judging success, but also gives you a bit of restraint too, because it can be very intimidating to enter and which way is left, up, down, and where, and what aspect should we be. So, I approach it through, wrapping it in experiments with a hypothesis, with things like that. And then, like I said, there's plenty of due diligence that kind of just precedes it. And, factoring into the overall strategy, I think it's certainly just, on one end, part of our innovation, program, if you will, and the innovation program being part of our strategy. Part of our strategy, we want to look for competitive advantage by experimenting, so entering new channels is definitely a pillar, of our strategy, certainly in social and kind of in the digital ecosystem in general.
Awesome. Yeah. So there's two more questions and they kind of tie into each other. So if you need me to repeat something, I'm happy to.
Got it.
So one more person says, working from home and distancing have altered consumer media and digital habits in many ways, right? Here are the questions. What are you seeing when it comes to those type of behavioral changes? How are they adapting? And then can you give us an idea of how you shifted your media channels as a result over these last 2 months?
Yes.
So what are you seeing when it comes to behavioral changes and how people are adapting?
Yeah. So a great question, and man, this is going to be relevant for some time. And I think that it's interesting because with GoDaddy specifically, this became a really neat opportunity for us because we are hosting the World Wide Web. You know what I mean? I mean, really, GoDaddy obviously is a global leader in domains and website hosting and whatnot. But of course, our products are much more robust than that, just in terms of website builders and commerce integration, et cetera. I mention this just because our brand and our products, we actually really were able to tap into, and empathetically, that just general shift in being online more, certainly for businesses, because we represent, or our customers are, everything from the smallest micro business food truck to some larger businesses. So I mentioned that just as an aside because it comes to my mind immediately, and it was as it pertained to my work at GoDaddy, something that we did. We were really amping up our capabilities to support the sort of just change and really call to action to get online and sell online, et cetera. But to kind of answer this question more directly, I understand it's more like, what are consumers, how are their media and digital habits changing around? So I think that, on one end, there is more time spent, in digital channels. So I think the overall trends for investing more in digital marketing and social ad spend, et cetera, were already, on the uptick, but that is, as marketers and as, media buyers, et cetera, it was shifting, that much more budget to accommodate people being, online, in social, etc. more. There were implications. I don't want to speak specifically because I don't know the data exactly, but there were implications, on media buying. So in terms of just cost and things like that. As it pertains, of course, to privacy, there has been obviously a charge for kind of increased privacy. We definitely won't go into the cookie discussion on this call. But with people, being online more, there has been some sentiment, again, accelerating trends that were already in place around data privacy and how people were receiving ads, or promoted content, etc. And I think what that has meant really for us is just continuing to really respect the data that we're leveraging in how we're delivering ads by ensuring that our message, and this goes a little bit into how customer expectations are evolving, that the message needs to be right on point, right person, right place, right time, and really empathetic and human. I think that in terms of the behavioral changes and tastes and things online, consumers have, and we may have heard this already. I'm certainly not the only one that evangelizes this, that there has been an expectation that brands are coming that much more sort of human to the table and sensitive to consumers' sort of lives, needs, wants, and experiences. So that's some insight, around that.
No, topic. Yeah, I enjoyed the shift. Obviously, everything that went with it, it's crazy and affected our lives in many different ways. But I think human is the way to go. So I'm all about it.
Yeah.
And then the second part of that would be, how did GoDaddy shift their media channels / media plan over the last few months as a result?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, just in terms of this question, because the last few months is how I interpret is actually more sort of our starting, at least in the US, right? Got to be careful because the struggle is serious elsewhere, but we are emerging sort of out. We're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, So when I think about literally the last few months, I don't always, I actually don't go to where we were when the pandemic, was deeply, fixed and we were in intense lockdowns, et cetera. So putting, with that said, in terms of this kind of emerging place that we're in, I think that, how we've sort of adapted media spend and whatnot, I don't know that it has adapted too much in terms of, like our quantity and the money we're putting out to market just from a quantitative perspective. But there is, and in part because we saw benefits of this, there is a healthy sort of continued growth in investing in our brand. And again, I kind of allude to the fact that GoDaddy Pro is a bona fide sub-brand of GoDaddy as of this year. It's a lot of the work that I'm doing, and that plays into it too. So to kind of leave it on one particular note, here at GoDaddy, among other phenomena, some of the things that we continue to do and in the last few months, certainly, and looking to the next quarter and so on, is investing in our brand to continue to touch consumers, in a meaningful way, in addition to our performance objectives.
That's great. That was the end of our questions. I guess I have one, if that's okay.
Let's hear it, Courtney.
But as a talent booker and, knowing GoDaddy is one of the most innovative, users of talent in the entertainment space and in the advertising space.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a philosophy, or is it kind of just like created as you go? And are there any cool big plans that we can expect, or do I have to wait until Super Bowl next year? What do you have going on?
Right. Well, I think I don't know about Super Bowl. So it's interesting. A lot of I mean, we're certainly in a modern era of GoDaddy. And listen, GoDaddy has been an awesome brand, a purveyor of the web. We can thank the brand for the internet we know today, right? And GoDaddy's modern sort of brand and mission, et cetera, is deeply customer centric. And I know that's almost cliche at this point because we all say we're customer centric, but truly, I mean, take one look at our Instagram, for example, which is just one representation of our broader kind of credo, if you will, of being customer first. But yeah, the modern GoDaddy brand is doing some neat things. And I think literally, we anchor into make your own way and make a different future. And really, make your own way is just ultimately about empowering. The web is a big and sort of opportunistic place, and we're here, to help you make your own way with our tools, of course, by just simply getting online and getting your domain, all of that. So that has acted as a really nice just compass for us in the choices that we make. So, when we think about, you had mentioned talent, and this was not my doing, but I have some colleagues, that we're just working with Tony Hawk and some other kind of in the sports arena. But of course, we employ a great influencer program as well. And those, to tie it all together, truly are driven by that, make your own way sort of mission, if you will. Things ahead, honestly, Courtney, there's a lot of excitement going on. I think real quick on one end, GoDaddy's kind of product suite and our really more so the value that we can offer customers is gangbusters right now because we've worked on some M&A. So, acquisitive sort of activity here. And, we'll soon be really integrating commerce and payments into our solution. So being able to get online and make money through your endeavor and through your new site. There's some new customer care capabilities that also come with the product. So that honestly is super exciting. And as it pertains to, yeah, no, it really, really is. And then I think, I've got to call it out. Stay tuned. There's certainly some really exciting new kind of programming and marketing fun to be had with our GoDaddy Pro brand as we continue to attract and delight and onboard web professionals, into the GoDaddy brand. So, keep an eye on some neat online events and all kinds of great stuff ahead.
Okay, and then we have one last question just popped up. What has been your favorite marketing campaign to work on during your time at GoDaddy?
Oh, well, I would have to say, without even fully racking my brain, honestly, what we've been working on just in the past, less than a year, I guess, let's say 8 months. And that is really launching GoDaddy Pro. And so the campaign, is sort of a long haul in the sense that the brand isn't going to be built with, one kind of quarter-long campaign that involves media and whatnot. But really the kind of holistic brand build campaign that we're employing is really exciting. And this is because just in part, we have the awesome opportunity to evangelize our brand with a new audience. It's a healthy challenge, right, to earn their trust, but it's one that I'm really excited about. And to just add one more kind of layer to it, we actually just finished. It was at the end of April. Expand 2021. This was an online event. We had thousands. We beat our targets, but we had, you know, nearly 6,000 attendees for a new brand. The engagement was just stellar. You know, what you want to do as a brand is sort of step back and let the community come together. We had great speakers. It came from our heart. And I was just impressed with how it ran, aside from all the, you know, marketing execution tied to it. Right. So I would say literally just what we recently finished, Expand 2021, within the broader GoDaddy Pro launch is my favorite at GoDaddy so far.
That's awesome. The feel-good ones are always the best. I know too.
Right?
One more question. You guys, cool. We got one more question. They're not going to leave you alone.
I like it.
Okay. I'm interested in this.
Ooh.
Do you see a return to physical event sponsorships this year?
Yes, I do. I said that very quickly because, in fact, I mean, it was just last week, forgive me, because I don't remember exactly what the event was. It was for one of our business units specifically, but actually in Florida, there is, I think it's this month, like the end of this month, in fact. Interestingly enough, it might be one of the first. There is sort of a conference being held. GoDaddy will be there and actually have a table and whatnot. So that helped me say yes so quickly. So I could almost just leave it at that. Like, listen, it is happening. There are some things happening. There are some prior commitments being realized physically. So ultimately, yeah, I do see, you know, even within this year, some physical or sort of hybrid executions going on.
I agree. I'm out of here. Wherever I need to go, wherever I'm invited, I'm going.
I'm so ready to. I really am.
This was so fun talking to you.
Thank you so much for your time, Courtney. Yeah. It was a pleasure. I wouldn't have wanted to do it with anyone else.
Of course.
Thank you both so much. That was such a fantastic session. I hope you come back onto the stage soon.
We hope so too.
Flattered.
Great day. And with